la famille.
So what I want to talk about today is how to design your growth strategy. I see this problem coming back often on our startups, which is basically what should I do in terms of growth. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the growth hacking framework designed by Dave McClure, the R framework. So basically you have 5 steps, which are acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenue. And these 5 steps defines all the steps a user takes in your app, in your product, in your service, or whatever. And you can't obviously work on everything at the same time. And so it's important to know what you should be working on, at what time, and when you should start moving on to other things. So the first thing to know is whether you are a community business or an intent-based business. This is the first distinction I like to make because it just makes your strategy very different depending on what you are, who you sell to, and how your users use your product. A community business is about 2 things, user engagement and creating a habit. So for instance, the quintessential community business is Facebook. The value of Facebook is not that they have many users, it's that the users come back every day. Because if you have an account on Facebook, but you're using it, let's say, I don't know, once a year, you're not providing any value to Facebook, and Facebook doesn't provide any value to you. So a community business is about creating this kind of habit where users come back often when they use the product, when they like it, and when they can either exchange with other people or just that becomes a service they use every day. So community business are about making sure people are engaged, making sure you have retention, and making sure they can invite their friends to join your community. On the other hand, an intent business is about serving the right customer at the right time. We have a startup at the family called Trusk, and they are moving things from somewhere to anywhere else. So basically, they help you move things from point A to point B anytime you want. Basically, their target is everyone. Everyone needs to move stuff at some point in their life because they're moving in, they're moving out, or I don't know, they want to move something. But not everyone needs the service at the same moment. So intent businesses needs to find the right customer at the right time. And it makes your growth strategy totally different because what matters is finding one acquisition channel that works well, that is profitable, that has a lot of liquidity. And so you have to make this distinction when you start. What's more, there is a third model, which is a hybrid model between the two, where you need both to find the right people at the right time, and you need to keep them engaged and using their product. For instance, this is the SaaS model. When you're selling software as a service, you need to find the people when they need your software, but also make sure they always come back and you don't have too much churn. So first thing, figure out whether you're an intent business or a community business, because this defines your strategy. Second thing is what is the story of your startup and at what stage of your startup you are. Do you know what product market fit is? Yeah, all right. So basically, product market fit meaning that you have a demand for what you sell. It means 3 things: people understand, people buy, people share what you do. All right? The most important thing to look for in a product market fit is whether people refer your product. Because the fact that people actually buy your product is cool, but what the real value comes in is when they refer other people and when they get users into your community or to use your service, etc. So basically, product market fit is about referral and making sure that people buy your product. It's a hard stage of our startup, so I don't know if you all have a startup, all have a product market fit, sorry. But basically, the most basic way of knowing whether you have one or not is that if you're asking if you have one, you probably don't. Because success is obvious and you know when you have a product market fit. You can feel it, you can feel the wind pushing you in the back and everything becomes easier because you have a strong demand. So once you the reason why product market fit is so important is because it totally changes the way you run your startup and you run your growth. You have three big moments when you're building your company. Hello, which is traction, transition, and growth. So this is a framework invented by Brian Balfour. So you can Google it. There's a long article about it, and it's rather interesting. Traction is everything that happens before the product market fit. So you don't know whether your product will encounter a demand or whether people are going to buy what you do. And what you're trying to do is this traction phase is just to check whether your idea is actually worth something and whether people are actually interested in. So you have to find your first clients manually. You can go in the street, you can hand over some flyers, you can scrap LinkedIn to get some email addresses. But the most basic thing you should do is getting to reach your client manually. When you have validated that there is a demand for your product or your service, you have a product market fit and you enter into a transition phase. The transition is when you start having some demand and you're trying to organize everything. So in terms of business, it's also the moment where you can start fundraising a seed round or a Series A. So basically, in terms of growth, the transition phase is when you set up what we call the growth engine. So growth engine is about having people using your product, loving your product, sharing and referring others to use your product, and making sure that when people discover your product, they actually understand it and they start using it. So it's about conversion too. This creates a loop where people who are your users will refer other users who will in turn come in and refer other users, etc., etc. So you have this kind of viral loop built in. This is what happened in the transition phase. Once you have this loop up and running, you can start moving on to the growth phase when you actually find a sustainable acquisition channel. There are lots of acquisition channels, maybe 10, 20, 50. So it would be a bit absurd to do a list, but basically the way you find an acquisition channel is by experimenting a lot. So you always have to think, where are my users, who are my users, and where can I just reach them at the right moment. It takes a lot of experimenting, so you have to test a lot of hypotheses and to run a lot of tests about it. But basically, this is where the magic happens when you start building a reliable acquisition channel and people start coming in. So what I'd like to show you is a few tools you can use to help you kickstart your growth and start experimenting very quickly. The first thing you should always remember is you should start doing things manually. When you have an idea of growth, always look for a way to do it manually and to do it by yourself. Not in order that it stays like this all the time, but it's more efficient, because what matters is you launch a lot of experiments really, really fast. And you should start experimenting, I don't know, you should start 2 to 5 experiments a week, let them run for a week, then start some others experiment, etc. So you have to go really fast, and in order to do that, there are lots of tools that can help you automate. When you want to, the two big problems I see happening often in terms of growth and experiments are collecting user input and starting to automate that and to sort the data and to work with the data. To collect user input, the best tool, I think, is a startup called Typeform. So maybe you know them. It lets you build form, basically. But two things. First, they are properly designed so they don't look like awful Google Forms that nobody wants to fill in. And you can build some automation on it. So if a user answers A, then you can take him to B. And if he answers C, you can take him to D, etc. So you can build some trees and start working with the data. The other great tool you should have in mind is Zapier. I don't know if you have already used it. Who codes here? You can write code? Okay, all right. Especially if you don't know how to write code, Zapier can help you automate a lot of stuff. The basic things that Zapier lets you do is connect different services together. For instance, you can collect input in Typeform, then send it into Google Sheets, and then from that send an email in Gmail. I don't know, it's a very basic thing. But what's great with Zapier is they help you build this automation stuff very easily. You don't have to write code. If you want to write code, you can. So it's very flexible, and you can start collecting data, putting it into databases, and using it. So basically, some things that you can do a lot of things with, and it's really a centerpiece of your strategy. This should let you create experiments very quickly and start collecting data. Second thing, content. Content is something that anyone can do. The only skill you need to master is writing, so I hope that it's okay. Basically, the great thing with content is you can build your expertise on your market, and you can show that you're an expert and that you're good at the things that you do. For instance, you can build content around cars and just feature your expertise. You can create content in a lot of ways. Most basic is a blog. Maybe you can create some guides. You can create an ebook. You can create lots of things. What you should remember about content is that you should spend 20% of your time on creation and 80% of your time on distribution. And what matters is how you distribute your content, not how you create it. So in order to go quicker when you create content, you should find freelancers to help you with that. There is a great website to do just that. It's textbroker.com. Textbroker lets you find a freelancer. Basically, you can write a few bullet list of what you want to see in your article, and the guy will do the research, write it, and format it. So you can pay, I don't know, it's something like $40 to $50 for a 1,000-word article. It's not very expensive. It helps you save time. If you want the best about content marketing, you should check the website copyhackers.com. They have a lot of tips on how to distribute content. What I should recommend is that you use a lot of Facebook groups and share contents in Facebook groups or forums or whatever. Depending on the business you're doing, it's likely that there is a group of people who actually like the same thing as you, and you can provide them with content. The great thing with content is if you just link to your homepage, you will probably get banned because it's spam and nobody wants to see that. But if you link content, people are likely to actually read it. You can send them 1 article, 2 articles, 3 articles, etc., and up to 10 articles. And maybe at the 10th article, they will say, okay, who's this guy? I'm going to check his website out. And then you get some traffic like that. It's, yeah.
Just about creating content, there's a website called onlinejobs.ph,
yeah,
where you can hire content writers for $300-400 a month.
Yeah.
And they can write lots of content.
And how many words does it provide for that?
Sorry?
I mean, it's just you
it's
pay
a
them.
job board in the Philippines.
Oh yeah, okay.
So you can hire full-time.
And do you know?
Hire full-time VA or assistants who are really good at writing.
Yeah.
For very little money compared to other websites.
And it's good quality.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's different quality. You have to test them out. But
yeah. No, yeah. Definitely, you should. If you can find this kind of cheap alternatives, you should go for it. The only thing with freelancers is you have to find the right one to work with, because for the same amount of money, you can get very different types of outputs. Even on Text Broker, which is rather good, you have 2 to 5 stars writers. Always take the 5 stars one, because otherwise you will have something that is crap. So. And next big channel of acquisition, email. Emailing is great to work with because, well, first it's easy. Everyone can write a good email. You can reach to people directly, and you can scrap thousands of email. One tool I like a lot is Data Miner. Basically, it mines data. You can check it out. It's a Chrome extension that you can put into your browser. And when you're using LinkedIn, especially if you have a professional account on LinkedIn, which is a worthy investment, by the way, you can export thousands of emails on LinkedIn queries. So obviously, it works best on LinkedIn. It works on a few other services, but the only one where it's really proficient is LinkedIn. It's definitely a great tool. LinkedIn is not useful to everyone, but what you should think about is if you have a community business, the best way to start growing your community is to do it purely organically. So to start a Facebook page, a Facebook group. Facebook group are a very powerful tool to get your community up and running, because people can invite their friends inside, they can share posts, and you don't have to pay to reach all of the Facebook group, unlike a page. So Facebook groups are a great way to kickstart a community, and you can start inviting people in it. So if you want to start a community, I would really do that purely organically, with people having to refer their friends. If you're having an intent business where you want to reach to the right people at the right moment, there's a great way to target people very precisely on who they are and what they do is LinkedIn. And so in that case, using tools like Data Miner lets you export all of a LinkedIn list into a CSV file. You can import the CSV file into SendGrid or whatever email provider you want to use. And then you can send a great email like, hey, first name, I saw that you are a growth hacker on LinkedIn. I'm doing a super software as a service for growth hacker. Maybe you're interested. Check it out at this webpage. Cheers, and you send it. The only rule is don't use MailChimp, because you'll get banned. And the other rule is be really careful about how you write your email, and try to write it the same way you would write to a friend. So don't do it in a newsletter way with lots of images, shiny content. Just write a simple cold email saying, hey, first name if you can. My name is that, I'm doing this. I'm writing to you because I saw that you are, I don't know, you're doing this job or you're living in this city. For instance, for your marketplace, you could say, hello, I saw that you live in London. I've got a lot of experiences in London, etc. So just try to be natural and a bit like you would do with a friend. It's definitely, I think in terms of efficiency, it's the most efficient tool. It's obviously something that you can do forever, but I think you can do it for the first, I don't know, maybe 100,000 emails that you scrap. After a while, it becomes a bit complicated. It becomes complicated because people are more picky on how they put you in the junk of their email, because you're too big to be unnoticed, and so it becomes complicated. And the last tool to test things very quickly in growth is to build a landing. You will obviously have to build a landing page at some point. A tool that I like a lot to do this is Kickoff Labs. I don't know if you guys know it. I'll send you the slides because I've put links in them, and well, it's easier that way. So, but basically, Kickoff Labs lets you build a landing page, which is a very basic feature, but you can build a viral loop in it, meaning that you can have a landing page where people can enter their email to sign up. Once they enter their email, they are prompted with a page that says, okay, so you're on the waiting list. There are, I don't know, 5,000 people in front of you. But if you want to skip the line and get to the beta right now, you can just refer 3 friends. And if you refer 3 friends, you have a specific code. If you refer 3 friends, we will give you the beta now or in 2 months or something. It works well, especially when you're thinking about either launching a new product or launching a feature. So if you want to launch a feature in your app and you don't know if it's worth it, you can build a landing page, advertise the feature, bring your users in, see how they react, and if they start referring friends, it's likely that this feature really interested them because they are ready to spend some time referring some friends just to get it. So Kickoff Labs is a great way to do it, and it's really easy. I don't know if you guys know the app Robinhood. It's a trading app, but they used it for the launch. I think they got maybe 50,000 emails, I think, something like that. So it's really efficient. So there's a few tools that I like. There are lots of other tools, but it should help you design a bunch of experiments to start testing things out. Now, at any rate, and whatever you do, you should measure everything you do on your website just to see whether it works or not. So I guess you all have Google Analytics on your website, but you can use Mixpanel or Amplitude. Amplitude is cheaper actually, so I would recommend Amplitude to track users' behavior. What you should always keep in mind is when you're running a campaign, whether it's with ads or with an email or whatever acquisition channel you choose, you should always track it with UTMs. So I don't know if you know what it is. Basically, it's get variables you put on your URL to be able to track it. Google provides you with a great UTM builder, and so when you fill in the form, they will give you a URL that looks like this, for instance, and this will help Google Analytics track my users, where they're coming from, etc. So for every campaign you do, build it with UTMs. When you have set up Google Analytics, the first thing you should do is setting up some goals. I don't know if you know how it works, but basically you can filter. You can build a funnel of where your users go, so they can go to your homepage and page A and page B and then to the checkout page. This is a funnel, and you should track that with a goal and measure what percentage of users visit your homepage and what percentage of users actually end up buying your product or using your product. So this is how you build the goal. Once again, I'll give you the slides because you can find that on the internet pretty easily. What's good with goal is you have a view like that, and you can see how many people completed each goal and what is the conversion rate for each goal, and you can have this kind of funnels. So in the left bar, you can build a funnel like that, which looks like that. So basically, you can see all the steps a user takes until goal completion, which is useful to see where they come from, where they go when they abandon the goal, or how many people actually do complete the goal. And finally, in Google Analytics, the last thing you should know, it's a crash course about Google Analytics, I'm sorry, but the last thing you should know is the interaction model. So it's still here in the conversion tab. At the bottom, you have a model comparison, and you can choose to track your goals on the first interaction model or last interaction model, which means that you can sort all the origins of our users, if they're coming from a Facebook campaign or from an email campaign, but sometimes you have several origins. Sometimes your user first see an ad, then open an email, and finally are retargeted, and they come when they see the retargeting. The question you should ask yourself is, do I want to attribute the conversion to my retargeting campaign, to my email campaign, or to my first ad campaign? And so this thing lets you do that. You can choose to track on the first interaction or on the last interaction. This is up to you, but in terms of tracking, you have to measure that just to know where your users are coming from and what campaign worked or didn't work. And finally, in terms of retention, if you're using tools like Mixpanel, or you can do it in Google Analytics, I think, but it's not very convenient. You can use cohorts to see the stickiness of our users and the percentage of users who signed up, I don't know, maybe 10 weeks ago and that are still here. It's important that you have this kind of tool to measure retention, not only just with a feeling, but with concrete numbers and with statistics. So you can use Amplitude or Mixpanel to do that. But anyway, you should really measure these kind of things just to see how sticky your users are. Of course, these are a lot of numbers, and sometimes you want to get more qualitative feedback, and you want to know more about how your users use your website, how do they behave. What tool that I like is Hotjar to do that. It lets you build this kind of heat maps, and you can see the hottest zones of your web page and where people actually tend to click. And you can screen record your users, so you can have a screen recording of what your users did. So if you want to see a specific behavior on your website, you can see that on Hotjar. So Hotjar, Mixpanel, and Google Analytics are three tools that should let you get a lot of data and a lot of insight from your website and see how it works and what works best with your users. You can put all that data in that kind of dashboard. So basically, I like this kind of dashboard to monitor how you're doing. This is the dashboard we hand over to our startups. It's very simple. We ask them to measure one weekly KPI. So for instance, if you're selling cars, it would be the number of cars sold. A growth rate, it's not accumulated number, so it's every week, the transactions you made for every week. You calculate a growth rate just to see how you grow. And on the side, just once in a while, updating these two tables, which are your funnel of conversion, all the steps the user takes from acquisition to when he generates revenue, and the acquisition breakdown of all your acquisition channels and which one converts best or is the cheapest. This is important to get these numbers in mind. I mean, you don't have to track them on a Google spreadsheet, but you do whatever you want, but you should have that in mind to see where you should work first. For instance, if I have this kind of funnel, I can say, okay, maybe I should try to increase referral because I have a huge gap here, but I don't need to increase activation because 80% of people who visit my homepage who sign up, it's okay. It's a great number. So I should always try to work to see where I should work. And this chart is useful to know what acquisition channel works best, and so which one I should put more money on. All right, so I told that already, but you should really go fast and do that. The reason why this table is every week is you really should launch experiments every week and try to increase your efficiency every week. The week is a great unit of measure, so try to use it, and you should go really fast on experimenting. All right, and so to sum up, it's just more for the slides. I will send it to you, but you should always know where you are. First, in terms of the stage of a startup, are you in a traction, transition, or growth phase? And is your startup a community intent or hybrid kind of startups? Just to see what you should do. Okay, so this is kind of some of the presentation, so I'll hand the slides over. And well, that's it. So if you have some questions, I'd be happy to answer that.
So you talk about retargeting users.
Yeah.
Assuming that's through some specific kind of pay-per-click ad campaigns. So how do you manage the retargeting?
Well, you have lots of tools to retarget. You have things like AdRoll, AdEspresso. They work well, but what I'd really recommend for retargeting is to use Facebook. Even if you have, for instance, a Google AdWords campaign that brings users in, I would retarget them on Facebook for one very simple reason. Actually, Facebook is rather cheap compared to Google. I mean, maybe you will pay 20 cents a click on Facebook while you will pay €2 or £2 on Google. So Facebook is still cheaper, and the retargeting tool is rather efficient, so it's very easy to set up. And I like the easiness and efficiency of Facebook, and you can use the basic built-in tools. Actually, I tried AdEspresso, and I always keep trying AdEspresso, and I keep finding Google's tool easier. Not that it's more efficient, but it's easier. So if you're not 100% focused on running ads, and you have other kinds of activities in your startup, which is often the case, I suppose you have lots of other stuff to do, I would ask Facebook. It's easy and trouble-free. So.
When you talked about email marketing, you mentioned don't use MailChimp. Why is that?
When you're really scrapping email on LinkedIn. I mean, when you're doing that, you will have a huge rate of people who say it's spam because they haven't subscribed to your mailing list, and providers tend to be more or less tolerant of that, and MailChimp is not at all. So basically, it's very simple. If one person complains to MailChimp, you get banned. So don't take the risk and use something. It doesn't mean you shouldn't use MailChimp, actually. You can use MailChimp for your regular campaign of people who have legitimately subscribed to your campaign, but otherwise use SendGrid, which is a bit more tolerant. It has a huge delivery rate. It works well, so I'd go for SendGrid for that. And when you do this kind of stuff, if you're really scrubbing, 100,000 emails, make sure you send them from another domain that's your main domain. Because if you have a huge spam flag, your domain might be flagged as spam, and you don't want that. So use a separate domain. I mean, if you have yourapp.com, you can use getyourapp.com and send emails like that. Yeah.
What's your view on Facebook versus LinkedIn for B2B communities? So a lot of people would say that if you've got a B2B business, you should probably use LinkedIn to do advertising or try and build a community. But I would still say that you've got people in that mindset that are hitting Facebook every night or every morning on the way to work. So do you think one's...
I would definitely use Facebook. I don't know how is that, but Facebook is just it's just better than everyone else. I mean, they're just really, really good at targeting people. And what's more, even if their ad system is you have more trouble to find the right people on their targeting ads. You will pay like 10 times cheaper on Facebook. So even if you have a bit less detailed targeting, you will save so much on every click you have that it's worth the shot.
You see a lot of stuff around growth hacking about, this year is going to be big in LinkedIn, and you should be creating a Facebook LinkedIn community or getting involved in it. But whenever I've tried it, done experiments, the conversion is so low.
Yeah.
And the engagement levels on some of the community boards are so low that it just seems completely pointless.
I think LinkedIn is not a social network. I mean, it's just a huge database, but people don't use it as a social. I always find the same results as you, so I would definitely recommend Facebook if you want to do anything social. I don't know why is that, but I think it's just one of the biggest jokes of the tech community that LinkedIn is actually a social network, while it's just a huge database of people that is that is scrapped from everywhere. You have leaks of data from everywhere. It's not a really good product. So I mean, just deal with that and use Facebook.
So if, as an example, if a CEO of a company arrives at our website and then we retarget them on Facebook,
Yeah.
despite the fact that they're a CEO, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and
You can't pick that person, but
and the proportion of people who use Facebook at work is just,
yeah.
I mean, everyone uses. I mean, you don't lie. So what are you saying? You are stuck on Facebook every day. No, I mean, it's just that everyone uses Facebook before or after. I mean, it's.
If you've got an email list, you can import your email list into Facebook.
Yeah.
And then you can target them through Facebook. And
Yeah.
you can also create a lookalike audience.
Yeah.
By email list.
Yeah, I haven't talked about that, but lookalike audience work really, really well. I don't know how Facebook manages it, but if you import like 10,000 contacts and you know they are your users, you can import your users into Facebook and create a lookalike audience. Facebook can find 100,000, I mean 10 times more of people that are lookalike, and it actually works. So I don't know how they manage it, but they're really, really good at it. So yeah, absolutely. Lookalike audience, and the fact that, I mean, I'm always a bit skeptical about importing emails into Facebook directly, except to build lookalike audience, but to use them directly, because you'd better reach out directly with email. I mean, it's cheaper to send an email to someone than paying for a click. So it's not very useful for that, but for lookalike audience, it just works incredibly well.
And how do you retarget with data from Google Analytics to Facebook? Do you have to export something and then import it?
What do you mean? No. To build a retargeting audience on Facebook, you have to leave a script on your page. Facebook gives you the script, and so basically it just, I don't know exactly how it works, but it's just a cookie that every user who visits your website is actually saved to your Facebook audience. So it doesn't work with Google at all. But I would actually track everything in Google Analytics anyway, just for tracking, and use Facebook for retargeting also. But the reason why I showed you Google Analytics is just it's very important to track, and to track every campaign you do. So if you're running a campaign on Facebook, Facebook will provide you with some statistics, which is fine. But what you should do is put these UTMs on the link you give to Facebook, so you can track where the user is coming from, etc. It's better to have one centralized system, because you will have some discrepancies between what Google Analytics show you and what Facebook shows you. And I mean, you can never have a 100% match. So it's better to track everything in Google Analytics and just monitor that. Yeah?
Do you have a cool recent experiment that has started the family?
A recent experiment.
Peter.
Yeah, but it's lucky.
It's a lucky experiment.
Yeah, I mean, no, getting lucky is obviously the best experiment you can run, but it's not really a plan. No, actually, it's something that the startup is intending to do. We have a startup called You Should that lets you book bars. Basically, you can book a bar or for your birthday or whatever. And the thing is, when you're organizing a birthday and you're inviting 50 people to get at the bar, you are You Should users, but all of your invited never hear about You Should. And so what they are going to do is they will ask people to print an invitation, and they will say the invitation is mandatory to get in, which is not, because nobody will look at the invitation. But this way, all the invitees will sign up to You Should, and so they are becoming users of You Should. Because to sign up, they have to do a Facebook login. They can get the birthday of everyone who signs up, and they just have to send the campaign 1 month before the birthday and say, hey, it's your birthday, so why don't you book a bar?
Good idea.
And this way you can have, you know, a huge referral, but it's, I mean, coming in. So that's something that, and it's not at all something about ads, about optimization. It's just how do you get one people on your service refers 30 people at once.
I guess that's a different approach. That's changing your product to help grow it rather than
Yeah,
changing your marketing strategy.
but it's where you get the most, the best results. It's when you change a product to build something into your product which will eventually build referral or whatever, but which will eventually get your users coming. And I mean, you have some micro optimization about your products that are not very interesting, but this kind of thing, if you can do it, you should do it immediately because it just changes the way you do. Just look at it. If you get to pay your clicks 20% cheaper, it's a 20% of you get 20%. Let's say you get 20% conversion more, so you get 20% of your revenue, and you increase your revenue by 20%. If you get 30 times the people who sign up on your website, you can increase your revenue by maybe 30 times. It's just a whole different game. 20%, 3,000%, you know.
So would that mean you should think of putting a social aspect to your product anytime you can, like when looking at
Yeah, but anytime you can, it makes sense.
and it makes sense and doesn't make stuff.
Because in this case, it actually makes sense to ask people to sign up for the event. If Trust, the one I was mentioning at the beginning, helps you move things from point A to point B, build a social feature in it, it would be quite awkward because when you move your couch from one flat to another, nobody cares. So I mean, you won't share that on Facebook, you know. So it always have to make sense. It's just a different business. I mean, when you're doing something that has a social or community aspect, it really is about leveraging every organic acquisition channel you can find. When you're doing an intent business, your job and what will make you succeed is whether you can get the most out of ads, etc. The reason why Trusk is working well is because there are guys in their companies who just run ads every day, and it's like a big marketing agency who happens to move things from point A to point B. But their job is to optimize the ads. So it's just a different job. All right? Cool. Well, thank you guys.
Que la famille.